Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I wanted to talk about something tragic that happened a few days ago, which is Klay Thompson's injury. But before we get into that, I just want to make sure that if you guys haven't subscribed yet, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on this video so we can get this channel growing and boost up the algorithm. But besides that, let's get into the video. So it was reported the other day that Klay Thompson had suffered an Achilles tear in LA while playing a pickup basketball game. Before we get into all of that and talk about all of that, I just want to give my condolences to Klay Thompson and what he's going through right now. This is really tragic. You know, first suffering an MCL tear last year, having to go through the rigorous recovery process only for this to happen. I really feel for him and I really hope he can toughen it out and come back. But aside from that, let's get into it. Let's talk about what implication this has on Klay, the team, and subsequently the league. I just want to say first that the ambitions and the Golden State Warrior team that we thought we were going to be getting next year, which is to say, you know, a title contender or the team that could resemble the 2015 Warriors. I just have to say right now, if you're from the Bay Area, if you're from that part of the country or whatever, you have to take those ambitions and throw them out the window. They're done. With Klay going down, the title ambitions that the Golden State Warriors had have gone out the window because Klay Thompson is such an essential piece to this team that without him next year, I can see them making the playoffs and being a low seed team, which is to say being a 7th or 8th seed team. But higher than that, I cannot see them being that. I'm very skeptical in Steph's ability to carry a team to a 5th or 4th seed. But with Andrew Wiggins and Steph Curry, I think they can get to a 8th or 7th seed, which is to say that next year is essentially a dud for the Warriors. And they should focus next year on the development of their new draftee, James Wiseman, and basically just acquiring pieces and looking to the future because next year it ain't it. But what's more interesting for me are the long-term implications that this has on the team, right? Because no matter how you slice it, right? Let's forget about next season for a second. No matter how you slice it, when Klay does come back, he will never be the kind of player he used to. He will never be at 100%. I can see Klay coming back and being at 75 to 80%, if not lower, but I can never see him being the Klay that we once knew. And this has a few implications, right? One of the implications it has is I don't think it impedes on Klay's ability to be the defensive juggernaut that he once was, right? Because we're talking about a guy who put up 37 points in 1 quarter, in 12 minutes. We're talking about a guy who put up 60 points with 11 dribbles. He scored 60 whole points with only 11 bounces of the ball. This guy's shooting prowess only matched by Steph's. He shoots it like that, like clockwork. Him and Steph, it's automatic. It's automatic. And so I don't think that this injury particularly is going to have a strain on him offensively. I think where it's going to have a strain or where it's going to impede on his game is on a defensive end, right? Because Klay's scoring prowess and his scoring capabilities oftentimes, if not most of the times, masks the secondary value that he brings to the Golden State Warriors in the sense that Klay, we don't talk about this as much as we should, Klay is one of the best two-way players in the game. Off of the top of my head, I can only name one player who's better than Klay at being a two-way player, and I think that's just Kawhi Leonard. Klay on defense is really good, right? Good, and that works in the favor of the Golden State Warriors in the sense that Steph Curry is very small, all right? He's small at 6'3", and that stature, he is barbecue chicken when other guards match up with him. For example, he can't guard elite guards in this league. For example, when the Warriors play the Rockets, or when the Warriors play any team that has a star guard on their team, Klay Thompson will always take the star guard of the opposing team. When Golden State plays Houston Rockets, Russell Westbrook or James Harden will always aim, and it's a very important and smart strategic idea. They will always aim to try and get Steph to switch onto them, because once they switch onto them, it's barbecue chicken. Steph can't keep up with Russ's agility, tenacity, and speed, and Steph can't keep up with James Harden's handles, his size, and his strength. And it's the same thing goes for other guards such as Damian Lillard, John Wall, Kyrie. Steph cannot keep up with them. It's a two-way thing. It's a two-way street, right? Steph can't keep up with them defensively, and they can't keep up with Steph defensively either. He'll torch them on when they're on defense too. He'll just go in there and cook them. But it's the same thing. But what the other teams don't have is they don't have a Klay Thompson to kind of supplement Steph's lack of defensive capabilities. And so with Klay being out, I know they just got Kelly Oubre Jr., but he isn't even half the player Klay Thompson is, right? What he brings to the Warriors, he can bring them some comfort in defense, where he can kind of live up to Klay defensively, but he is nowhere near Klay when it comes to offense, right? And so they suffer there. So it's kind of a trade-off. But because of that, I don't see the Warriors being as good as they once were, because you have to think about this. This injury is a serious injury. Injuries like these are career-altering or career-ending injuries, all right? There's a reason why these kind of injuries take a year to recover from, right? And especially when you're coming off of another serious injury like an MCL tear, only to get an Achilles tear, it is astounding. And you have to remember, when you come off of injuries like these, like an MCL tear or an Achilles tear, you're more prone to getting injured again. I can probably guess this is why Klay got injured, right? Because he had that MCL tear last year in the 2019 NBA Finals. Look at it this way, from a basketball standpoint, just from sports standpoint, when you have a serious injury like an MCL tear, right, and you have to go through the rigorous 1-year process of recovering from that, right, your body and your mind subconsciously is not going to want to re-aggravate that part of your body, right? And so when you do come back, your body compensates for this, right, by moving differently when you play and putting more stress on other parts of your body, in turn making them more at risk of getting injured. And that's why players who are injured are more prone to getting injured again. That's why you see players like Kyrie Irving getting injured time and time again, because as if getting injured isn't as bad enough, when you get injured, you're more prone to getting injured again. This is kind of something that's working against Klay, and it's really tragic to see. For example, Kevin Durant last year in the 2019 playoffs, right, leading up to the finals, he got injured, right? And then after the Warriors got into the finals and started losing, which is to say they were down to Toronto, the organization apparently pressured KD into coming back early, and he came back early and ended up tearing his Achilles just like Klay. And this is why you hear people say don't come back too early. This is why Kawhi Leonard left San Antonio, because they were pressuring him to come back early, and he didn't feel his body was right enough to come back, and he felt he needed more time, but they just kept pressuring him, and he ended up leaving. He ended up wanting to be traded, and so he got dealt to Toronto. But it's the same thing. It's the same principle. With injuries in sports, you have to take them very seriously. The time period of them is very important. Furthermore, another thing is, we don't talk about this enough, but the mental toll and implications that these kinds of injuries take on sports players is absurd. Think about this for a second. You get injured, right? And you have to go through surgery, and you have to go through rigorous rehabilitation every day, day in, day out. You have to be away from the game you love, and this takes a toll on a player. But when that happens to you over and over again, it can almost lead you, if not in some cases, it can lead you to just walking away from the game. An example of this is Andrew Luck, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts. He was a stellar, amazing MVP caliber quarterback in the NFL, but he retired very early. He retired last year very early, and I was shocked. Everyone was kind of sad, but the reason he retired was because of his offensive line being garbage in his formative years at the organization. He was getting hit a lot, and because of that, he was getting injured a lot, and he was being injured on a back-to-back basis. And the terrible process of rehabilitation, surgery, rehabilitation was getting to him mentally, and eventually he just decided it was time to walk away from the game. And we understood, the league understood, and the fans and people, they understood. The organization ended up giving him the money that he was gonna earn, the tens of millions of dollars that he was supposed to earn. The organization just ended up giving it to him. They just said, you know what, you've done a lot for our organization, just, you can just walk away. You don't have to keep playing to earn this money. It's just whatever yours, you can go do something else with your life. And it just goes to show you the mental side of there's always more than one side to the coin. There's the physical side and then the mental side of it, and you take that into account, and this could really work against Klay Thompson. And another thing you have to look at too, again, is the fact that by the time Klay comes back in the 2021-2022 season, he'll have been 2 years away from the game, which is to say the last time he had played in a professional basketball game would have been in 2019. And in sports, this is a lifetime. 2 years away from the game is a life. And also, that means his body is 2 years older. And again, in sports, this means a lot, right? The difference between a player going from here to going to here is 1 year. And so when you look at that, it just is something that works against him. And another thing that works against him is the fact that because he'll be 2 years older, you have to also think and realize that as a player gets older, not only are they more prone to getting injured, they recover from injuries slower, which puts them more at a risk of being injured more. And so it's a kind of a vicious cycle. And so with Klay being 2 years older when he returns, and when we take into account that Steph, by the time Klay returns, Steph is going to be a free agent, we have to take into account that Steph is going to have to weigh this information in on his decision-making process on whether he wants to stay in Golden State or if he wants to leave. He has to look at the history of Golden State and maybe come to terms with the fact that Golden State is no longer what it used to be, and look at the forecast, which is to say he has to see can Klay perform to even 80 or 75% of what he used to be. He has to take a look at that. And so the only thing that can work in their favor is if by the time Klay returns, James Wiseman by his second season will be able to be good enough for Klay to not be a secondary player anymore. Or Kelly Oubre Jr., because he's a young guy, there's still time for him to develop. By that time, he has come into his own and has become a really good player to the point where Klay doesn't have to exert as much defensively. And Steph has to take that into account. And the organization, the team, has to realistically start looking at the possibility of moving off of Klay Thompson. They have to start looking at the possibility of maybe moving off of him early, because in sports, there's a saying that goes that it's better to move off early rather than late. Pay a player late rather than early. And an example of this is in New England, Bill Belichick. In 2018, when Tom Brady had just won a Super Bowl, Bill Belichick was ready to move off. Bill was like, all right, I'm ready to move off of him. I've got the next guy up. I've got his succession plan. All right, let's get it going. And the only reason it didn't happen was Tom went behind Bill's back to Robert Kraft, the owner, and told him, no, get Jimmy Garoppolo out of here. He's not taking my job. And that is what eventually happened. But Bill was ready to move off. It doesn't matter. If you gave me a championship, in the long term, I'm thinking about the future. And that's the thing with sports. And so coming back to Golden State as an organization, they have to realistically look at the prospects of moving off Klay early and maybe trading him away and getting assets. Maybe they trade away Minnesota's unprotected first-round pick next year and Klay Thompson and get rid of him, and maybe bring in someone like a Bradley Beal just to guard to supplement Stephen Curry. If not, maybe wait, come back, see how he performs, and then try to move off of him afterwards if it doesn't work out. I know it's cutthroat and it's hard to swallow and it's tough to think about, but that's the business side of the game. And it's sometimes hard to think about, but that's how it is, because you think, wow, these guys have families, kids, homes, mortgages, all that stuff to pay for, and you just flip them and move them like a piece of meat. But it's the business side of the ball, business as usual, and gotta keep feelings out of it. But aside from that, I really hope that Klay recovers and he comes back. This is really tragic to hear. He's a beloved guy in the locker room and in and around the league. He's just a lovable dude. He's just a cool guy. He's one of those guys you think it'd be sick to get a beer with him and just just talk, watch sports with, or maybe go fishing with, or maybe just just hang out with. But I really hope he can recover, and I really hope he comes back, and I wish him the best. But besides that, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you next time.